Hello, everyone. Tonight, we are not in your cozy living room or curled under a blanket with popcorn. Tonight, we are standing on the edge of a swamp in the early Cretaceous, blinking at a forest that shouldn't sparkle, but it does. There's a shimmer in the canopy like the back of a beetle in sunlight or gasoline on wet pavement. It disappears when you blink. Then silence. Something flits above you, silent as a ghost, and you're not sure if it had wings or just very angry feathers. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are right now. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan for some soothing noise, and let's get started tonight. You shuffle along the edge of a mossy ridge, the air thick with the buzz of things too small to see and too old to name. Your boots, well, if you had boots, squelch into spongy ground. Above you, trees loom like hairy giraffes, their branches tangled in vines and fog. You duck as something flutters overhead. 4 wings, 1 body, tiny, and rainbow. It's the Microraptor, though you don't know that yet. You just know your neck hair stands up and your chest tightens. This isn't the chirpy, seed-picking fluff ball you associate with the word bird. This thing looks like it crashed a rave and came out the other side hungry. It lands on a low branch and stares. That's it, just stares. Its feathers are blue-black with hints of green, purple, even copper when it moves. You'd call it beautiful if it didn't blink sideways like something that doesn't care if you're impressed. One claw lifts, and its tail, a long feathered rudder, twitches. Then it's gone again, gliding silently from tree to tree like a reptilian rumor. Microraptor wasn't big, about the size of a crow with dreams of being a dragon. It had feathers not just on its arms but on its legs too, making it one of the few creatures to sport 4 aerodynamic limbs. You'd expect something so flamboyantly built to squawk and crash about like a drunk peacock, but this one moves like a whisper. A dangerous one. Historians still debate whether this little show-off could truly fly or just glide from tree to tree like some prehistoric sugar glider. Its bones were hollow like those of modern birds, and it had a wishbone and flight feathers. But its shoulders suggest it couldn't flap like today's birds, which means it soared like a falling leaf with an attitude problem. You crouch, trying not to breathe too loud. It perches directly overhead now. One eye rotates in your direction. The way it watches you, it's not deciding whether to flee. It's calculating how fast you bleed. Remember when humans evolved to look at sharp teeth and say danger? Well, Microraptor's not banking on teeth. It's counting on curiosity. You're meant to admire those iridescent feathers, perhaps long enough for its curved killing claw to become the last thing you ever feel. Of course, its claws were no joke. Like a scaled-down raptor, it had a hyper-extendable second toe that could slash or cling depending on the situation. And its tail, while covered in feathers, was stiffened with rods to act as a stabilizer. Aerodynamics meets murder weapon. Very on-brand for the Cretaceous. The bird thing moves again, this time lower. It's definitely watching you. You realize this is probably not the first time something like you has ended up under this creature's scrutiny. Small mammals think shrew-sized speed snacks were plentiful in this era. And though you're bigger than its usual target, the Microraptor doesn't seem entirely dissuaded. Suddenly, it opens its mouth not to screech but to snap a beetle mid-air. Then, like it knows you're not worth the calories, it turns and glides into the canopy, vanishing with the same indifference it arrived with. You finally breathe again. Here's an odd fact for you. Despite looking like something out of a dragon cosplay convention, the Microraptor's closest living relatives are pigeons. Yep, your city's most annoying bird might be distantly related to this rainbow-cloaked assassin. Life is weird like that. And while we're on the topic of weird, its color, those shimmering hues weren't just artist imagination. Modern studies using scanning electron microscopes on fossilized feathers have revealed melanosomes, pigment-carrying structures arranged in patterns that strongly suggest iridescence. Think of hummingbirds or peacocks. Now make it bitey. So yes, that color was real and purposeful. Was it for mating, territorial display, camouflage? Historians still debate whether the color served a function beyond look fabulous while you kill. Maybe it just was. Evolution doesn't always explain itself to us. Back in your damp patch of forest, the tension eases. You didn't die. This time. But you're not the top of the food chain here. You're not even on the chain. You're a curiosity with soft skin, slow reflexes, and no feathers. The forest yawns around you like an open mouth. Something else is watching now, something quieter than before. You press on. But the shimmer never quite leaves your vision. Maybe it's in your eye. Or maybe it's still up there watching again, waiting for a reason. You trek deeper into the forest and the air thickens like soup left too long on the stove. Every step sticks. Every sound feels borrowed. Nothing chirps. No rustle, no squeak. Not even the hum of insects. That's how you know something's wrong. A forest this quiet doesn't mean peace. It means a predator is near or worse watching. The canopy above dims not from cloud cover, but from the sheer weight of branches and leaves choking the sky. You can't tell if it's morning or afternoon anymore. Just green and shadow. You stop and tilt your head up. There's movement again, fast, fluttery, then still. Your eyes catch it just in time, a flash of color moving between the branches like spilled paint. The Microraptor is following you, not in a horror movie stalker in the shadows way, but more like a bored cat tracking a wind-up mouse. You take a few steps forward, pretending not to notice. It hops to a closer tree. You pause. So does it. Its eyes blink sideways again, and it raises its feathery arms like a matador. But no sound, just a glimmer. Historians still debate whether Microraptors hunted in packs or alone. Some fossil sites have turned up multiple individuals in close proximity, which could mean social behavior or just coincidence. Maybe they were nesting. Maybe they were all drawn to the same buffet line. The forest won't say. You crouch and press a palm against the mossy bark of a fallen log. It's wet soft like rotting lettuce. Your other hand touches something hard and sharp. Bone. Long, thin, and very much chewed. Probably not fossilized yet. Still white, still fresh. The idea that these creatures so small and seemingly delicate could bring down anything bigger than a squirrel seems ridiculous. Until you remember the claws, and the silence, and that rainbow cloak that somehow makes them more dangerous, not less. One Microraptor lands on a branch above you, then another. You've never seen a double rainbow in the wild before, but here it is, two iridescent killers watching from opposite branches. One tilts its head. The other fans its feathers like it's flexing. The air tightens. You try not to breathe too loud. The science behind their silence is eerie. Like owls, Microraptors might have had soft feather edges to muffle sound during glides. It's not confirmed they didn't leave audio behind, but some researchers argue that their shape and feather arrangement hint at stealth over speed. In short, you wouldn't hear them coming, and then crack. You flinch as a twig breaks behind you. You spin around. Nothing. You glance up, both Microraptors gone. A deep primal instinct kicks in, run. You push forward through the brush, ducking beneath vines, tripping over roots, scraping your arms. Every sound you make seems to echo louder than it should. You're not sure what you're running from, only that something's changed. The forest isn't just quiet anymore, it's waiting. Odd fact of the day. The name Microraptor means small thief, like some Cretaceous pickpocket with a flair for flair, but you don't feel like you've lost your wallet. You feel like you're being measured. Eventually, you find a clearing. A strange one. Too clean. No undergrowth, no saplings. Just a bare patch of earth dotted with what looks like old scratches in the dirt. You kneel and brush away some loose soil. More bones. Tiny vertebrae bits of jaw scattered like leaves. Not a kill site, more like a discard pile. And the Microraptor is back. Just one this time. It lands 10 feet away, talons curling into the soft earth. It doesn't pounce, doesn't hiss, just watches. You feel like you've interrupted something sacred, or perhaps routine. Historians still debate whether microraptors scavenged in addition to hunting. Some specimens have been found with small bones in their stomachs, lizards, birds, even fish. Yes, fish, which raises even more eyebrows. Could they fish? Did they wade, glide down like a dart and snatch a slippery lunch? No one knows. The microraptor in front of you shifts. Slowly, deliberately. It spreads its arms and legs. All four wings extend, showing off the full spectrum of colors. This isn't aggression. This is a show. And you're the only one in the audience. The rainbow ripples as it sways from side to side. Maybe it's a threat. Maybe it's confused. Maybe in some weird twist of natural theater, it thinks you're one of them. Big, hairless, awkward, but still interesting enough to impress. Your heart slows, just a little. You sit, and it doesn't leave. Instead, it tucks its wings, hops to a rock, and preens. Carefully. Like a cat licking its fur after a failed pounce trying to salvage dignity. It pulls one feather between its beak and lets it fall back into place, glistening. It's hard to stay afraid of something that grooms with that much elegance. Eventually, it lifts off again, not with urgency, but like someone leaving a room after making a point. It disappears into the green above. And the silence doesn't return. Birds, smaller ones, start to chirp. You hear leaves rustling, water dripping, a branch cracking in the distance. Whatever spell had been cast is broken, but you don't forget the rainbow, not for a second. You lean against a twisted root and try to catch your breath, though it's hard to relax when the trees still feel like they're breathing with you. The silence has lifted, yes, but only slightly. Enough for life to resume, but not enough for comfort. You glance up, half expecting another microraptor to glide down and demand an encore. What you saw? It wasn't quite a bird, not yet. And that's where the confusion begins. Microraptor is a creature caught in transition, a halfway point between ancient lizard and modern sparrow. Feathers, check. Wishbone, check. A tail like a dragon's and claws that would make a cat blush. Also check. But calling it a bird would be like calling a kangaroo a car because it moves, gets you places. The Microraptor belonged to a family of feathered dinosaurs that were experimenting with flight the way a toddler experiments with stairs, boldly, messily, and sometimes upside down. You watch a beetle skitter across a leaf, then a second one. You wonder how many microraptors are out there in the trees blending into the shimmer, watching you through feather-framed eyes. They weren't flying, not really. More like controlled falling. Picture this, you're a cat-sized dino-bird with long leg feathers and a thick ribbon-like tail. You leap from a branch and spread four limbs, arms and legs alike, each feathered like an over-enthusiastic costume party. Your tail tilts. You shift your hips mid-air to glide left. No flapping, just steering, like a deadly kite. Modern science calls this arboreal gliding, like flying squirrels, sugar gliders, and certain lizards. Microraptor likely relied on gravity as much as skill. One fossil even shows a Microraptor's skeleton with stomach contents that included a bird, suggesting it could launch a mid-air ambush using its four wings to maneuver like a dagger dropped from the clouds. Historians still debate whether it ever achieved powered flight at all. Some claim its muscle structure couldn't support sustained flapping. Others argue the feather arrangement along its limbs was inefficient, more like an ornamental glider than a true aviator. But that ambiguity, that's where the story lives. You move slowly now, more aware of each step. You look at the trees differently, not as obstacles, but as sky bridges. Highways for things that fly without really flying. You duck under a low branch and spot something strange, scratch marks in the bark arranged in neat diagonals. You touch them. They're smooth, worn, repeated, climbing marks, and they go high. too high for anything that didn't have claws and purpose. You reach for a nearby vine to hoist yourself up, curious what the Microraptor saw from that vantage point. But halfway up, you realize your feet weren't made for this. Your legs weren't made for feathers, and your arms can't catch a breeze. Odd fact. The feathers on Microraptor's legs weren't just fluff, they were true flight feathers. Long, stiff, and asymmetrical, the kind that helps with lift and direction. Having four wings made it awkward to walk but graceful in the air. Try picturing that on a runway. Fashion meets function in the most prehistoric sense. As you scramble higher, your foot slips. You grab the trunk bark, shredding your palms. You pause, heart racing. Above you, a shadow moves again, but it doesn't approach. It glides away slow and easy. You've been spotted. But you're not prey. Not today. At the top, you find a wide branch and sit. The forest stretches around you like a sea of green. No cities, no roads. Just the occasional burst of color as another feathered flash moves between branches. And you realize something odd. You're not at the top of the food chain. You're not even in the running. Here in the Cretaceous canopy, dominance belongs to those who can move without sound, kill without size, and shine like starlight without apology. Microraptors didn't dominate the Earth. They didn't need to. They owned the gaps between. Back on the forest floor, a soft sound rises. Not from an animal, from wind. A breeze moving through leaves, finally brave enough to return. The tension is gone. You hear the forest breathe. And somewhere, another Microraptor glides from one tree to another, graceful and quiet, part reptile, part riddle. Imagine being the first human to discover its fossil. It's 2000. China. A slab of stone split open to reveal something with feathers where no feathers should be. Legs with quills. A tail with flare. And that unmistakable shimmer, black with hues of purple and blue like a raven dipped in stardust. That fossil changed everything. Not just what we knew about flight, but what we thought about dinosaurs. This wasn't some dusty lizard dragging itself through mud. This was color, and air, and movement. Suddenly, dinosaurs weren't just reptiles, they were ancestors to birds. They were dancers, performers, assassins in disguise. Historians still argue whether Microraptors' colors evolved for visibility or some other reason entirely. Maybe the feathers were just a byproduct of insulation. Maybe they were a mating display gone beautifully overboard. Or maybe evolution just decided to show off for once. You look down at your hand smudged with dirt and tiny cuts from the climb. You're bleeding just a little. The forest doesn't care. It never did. But as you catch your breath and watch the trees shimmer again, you feel smaller in a good way. Because somewhere out there, a creature with four wings and a coat of stars is gliding silently between branches, rewriting everything we thought we knew about how dinosaurs moved, looked, and maybe even loved. You wake up to a soft drizzle tapping against your shoulders. Well, not wake up exactly. You hadn't meant to fall asleep, but the tree branch had cradled you like a hammock, and the damp air had turned your brain to syrup. Now your legs are numb and there's a suspicious clicking sound above your head. You look up. A Microraptor. Not the same one as before, probably. Maybe. Who knows? These things don't exactly wear name tags. It's perched sideways on the tree trunk, like a gecko head tilted at a sharp angle. Feathers catching the misty morning light like a wet oil painting. It watches you. Not hostile, just interested. Like you're part of a puzzle it's trying to solve with claws and instinct. And what a puzzle! You must be some weird furless mammal with poor climbing skills and zero glide capability. But you do have eyes, and right now those eyes are staring at its feathers. Feathers that look like they belong in a dream. Historians still debate whether feathers first evolved for flight warmth or something flashier. In Microraptor's case, the answer might be none of the above. See the structure of its feathers, the long barbs, the tight veins, the microscopic melanosomes that scatter light suggest they were meant to show off. Scientists examining Microraptor fossils under electron microscopes discovered that its melanosomes were shaped and stacked in a way that produced iridescence, much like modern hummingbirds or starlings. These weren't just black feathers, they were black with mood lighting. Depending on the angle, they could gleam purple, green, blue, even bronze. And here's where it gets strange: those colors don't help you hide. Iridescence catches light, reflects it, broadcasts it. So why would a predator want to shimmer? Well, maybe to warn rivals, maybe to woo mates, or maybe to confuse prey. You ever tried to track something shiny in the dark? Your eyes jump. You see movement where there is none. And in the split second you need to focus, it's already over. Odd fact: some researchers think Microraptor's glossy coat might have served a bit like a disco ball in a cave. A dazzling distraction, a burst of color in a shadowed world. You shift slightly, and the Microraptor flinches. Not from fear, just annoyance, as though you've ruined its morning vibes. It flutters upward, hopping branch to branch with the grace of a paper airplane dipped in silk. The feathers trail behind like whispers. You start climbing down, slower this time. The bark is slick with rain, the moss beneath your fingers cold and gritty. One misstep, and you could fall straight into the waiting arms or claws of whatever's lurking below. But somehow the forest feels less hostile today, like the rules have changed. Maybe that's what color does. It reframes everything. At the base of the tree, you brush off your hands and crouch beside a shallow puddle. The water's surface is still reflective, and for a moment you catch your own face, tired, scratched, awestruck. Then behind you, a shimmer. You turn. Nothing. Just branches swaying and the faint scent of sap. You keep walking slower now, half listening, half hoping, because this wasn't supposed to happen. You were meant to survive dinosaurs by imagining them as scaly and predictable. Gray-green brutes with no flair. But Microraptor. It's a living contradiction. A hunter that glows. A bird with 4 wings. A thing that doesn't make sense but insists on existing anyway. And it's not the only one. As you pass a thicket of ferns, you spot something else, movement low to the ground. Not another Microraptor. This one's stockier, browner, grounded. A dino-bird too, but duller, functional. It pecks the ground and vanishes into the brush. And for a moment you realize the rainbow isn't the default here, it's the exception. Feathers might have started as insulation, but somewhere along the evolutionary journey, dinosaurs decided to go glam. Some went full peacock. Others just needed to be seen by the right eyes. It wasn't about being invisible, it was about being important. Historians still argue over how many feathered dinosaurs sported such color. Fossilization doesn't preserve pigment often. What we do have are hints, structural clues, and melanosome shapes patterns in feather alignment placement on the body. It's like reconstructing a shattered stained glass window with only the lead lines left intact. But Microraptor gives us a full pane. A glimpse of the ancient world with all the lights still on. You pause beside a stream, the water sluggish and murky with runoff. Overhead, the canopy parts, slightly letting in a shaft of pale light. You sit on a smooth stone and watch the clouds reflect in the stream. And then you hear it, not a roar, not a screech, but the rustling of feathers. You look up. Another Microraptor perches across the stream. It's watching you. No display, no threat, just stillness. Its feathers barely catch the light this time, but you know what's hidden there. You've seen it. The hidden fire, the ancient prism. It's not a costume, it's a language. And you've just started to learn how to listen. You're getting better at spotting them now, the Microraptors. Once you know what to look for, the forest seems full of them. That ripple of shimmer behind the ferns. A tail. That odd rustling in the mid-branches, wings adjusting. That patch of black among the leaves that shifts ever so slightly when you blink, probably watching you again. But you haven't been attacked. Not really. Not yet. You're learning something that makes you uneasy. They're not afraid of you. You with your bipedal awkwardness and your skin like a plucked chicken. You might as well be a rock with eyes to them. But you are bigger. And for once you think that might not be an advantage. You duck beneath a branch again, slick with rain, and find yourself face to face with the trunk of an enormous tree. This one's different. It's been clawed, not just scratched clawed. The grooves are deeper than the ones you saw before, wide enough to slide your fingers in. You run your hand down them, old marks, worn smooth and high, much too high. Microraptors didn't just glide between trees, they climbed them. Probably better than you walk on flat ground. Their curved claws and light bodies let them scale vertical bark like it was a spiral staircase. You crane your neck upward, following the ladder of claw marks until they vanish into darkness. You take a step back, then another. And that's when the branch above you moves. Not the whole branch, just a section. It blinks. A microraptor unfolds itself from the shadows and skitters to a higher perch. Not attacking, just climbing, watching. Maybe you've stepped into its hunting ground, or maybe you're the one intruding on its observation deck. There's a word for animals that prefer high ground. Arboreal. Creatures that rarely touch Earth because the Earth is dangerous. Ground means predators. Ground means limitations. But Microraptor. It was born for the sky maze of the canopy. Historians still debate whether Microraptors hunted from trees or used the height just for escape. Fossils suggest both behaviors. Some were found with prey in their guts. Others seemed to die where they fell from above. And still others perfectly preserved mid-leap, mid-glide, mid-whatever you call it, when evolution hasn't decided yet if you're a bird or not. You sit at the base of the tree beneath a tangle of roots that could cradle a car. You reach into your satchel, because of course in this dream space you have a satchel, and pull out something wrapped in waxy cloth. A sandwich. A flask. You can't remember packing it. But here it is. You take a sip. Above another shimmer. Then another. They're not surrounding you, but they're watching. You can't shake the feeling that you're not a threat, not a curiosity, but maybe just another animal in the canopy. One that doesn't belong here. Odd fact for the day. Microraptors had asymmetrical flight feathers. That's a huge deal. In modern birds, that's a telltale sign of flight capability. The uneven shape provides lift and control. But in Microraptor's case, they appeared not just on the arms, but also the legs. Meaning evolution was tinkering, trying different configurations of what it meant to fly, to glide, to be more than a ground hugger. You hear something now, not from above, from beside. A rustle. Then another. You squint. 2 Microraptors, one glossy black, one more copper with a patch of duller feathers along its neck, maybe from age, maybe a recent molt. They're not chasing each other, they're circling, mirroring, testing the space between them. A mating display, territorial dance. Historians still debate what exactly these behaviors meant. Like birds of paradise, it's possible these feathered predators had elaborate rituals. Rituals that involved flashing colors, strategic wing-spreading tail fanning. Not for fighting, for performance. You stay completely still. They don't seem to care. Your background noise. The black one tilts its head, spreads all 4 limbs, and flares its feathers in a quick, silent burst. The copper one responds not with a mimic but with a spiral hop that ends in a perfectly balanced tail flick. You think this is choreography. This is ancient ballet, and it's playing out right in front of you. Then, just like that, it ends. One vanishes up into the trees. The other flits away sideways, gliding low before perching high and folding its wings with practiced dignity. You don't move for a long time. Eventually, you rise and start to climb again. Not high, just far enough to feel a breeze through the leaves. The air smells like wet bark and something faintly sweet like tree sap warmed by filtered sunlight. It clings to your nostrils, heavy and almost nostalgic, like the scent of old books or forgotten dreams. As you settle on a branch wide enough to stretch your legs, a single Microraptor lands nearby. It tilts its head at you and does nothing else. Just is. That might be the strangest part of all. You sit together for minutes, maybe longer. And though you know it could leap and tear out your throat in a blink, it doesn't. Because this isn't a predator-prey moment. This is cohabitation for now. And that's the thought that echoes as you finally lie back and close your eyes again, surrounded by trees that never stop whispering and creatures that dance in colors older than time. You wake with the sharp sense that something is watching you again, but this time the feeling is different. Less curiosity, more calculation. You sit up slowly, your back aching from the branch that served as your mattress. A single leaf drifts down and sticks to your forehead. You peel it off, then freeze. Directly across from you, crouched low on a slanted trunk, is a Microraptor, but not like the others. This one's bigger. Its feathers shimmer less with color and more with darkness. Where the others glinted like starlight, this one absorbs it, a shadow cut from wet obsidian. And it's not perched like the others, it's poised. Then it jumps. You throw yourself sideways as the predator crashes down, claws slicing through the space where your face had been. You hit the forest floor with a grunt, roll, scramble, and run. Behind you, a flutter of wings, not a glide, not a drift. A purposeful, directed leap. The difference is terrifying. Turns out beauty doesn't mean harmless. In fact, in nature, it rarely does. You duck under a fallen log and sprint for the thicker tree's heart in your throat. This one isn't displaying, it's hunting. Microraptor wasn't just a science fair experiment for feather placement, it was a real predator. Fossils have revealed gut contents that include lizards, birds, fish, and even mammals. It had curved claws on its hands and feet, a sharp, beak-like snout, and a tail stiffened for balance mid-attack. Think a four-winged assassin with a sense of style. You dive into a thicket of ferns and freeze. Your breath comes in ragged gasps. Somewhere nearby, twigs snap. You glance up, and there it is again. The black-feathered Microraptor is moving more like a terrestrial predator, now leaping between lower trunks, not even bothering with a glide. It's closing in, patient, confident. You've become part of its trial. Odd fact. Some paleontologists believe that the legs of Microraptor didn't just help in gliding, they were the key. In fact, with those long feathers on the legs, it might have glided better than some modern birds fly. But what happens when something that aerodynamic decides not to fly at all? Exactly what's happening now. You run again. You're not fast, not by this world's standards, but you've got desperation. You push past saplings, leap over roots, skid down a muddy slope, and tumble into a shallow ravine. Water, stagnant, but it's a barrier. You scramble across it, slipping twice, cursing through your teeth. On the other side, you collapse under a thick net of hanging vines. You hold still. You listen. The Microraptor doesn't follow, not immediately. It perches high above and waits, watching. Like a chess player, letting you realize you're already 4 moves from checkmate. You breathe as quietly as possible. Historians still debate whether Microraptor hunted alone or in coordinated efforts. There's evidence for both. One fossil was found near others in a configuration that some interpret as group behavior. Others argue it was simply a coincidence of death. But in moments like this, with that shadow perched above you, still patient, methodical, you wonder if they didn't just act alone but think alone too. It drops from the branch but away from you. You tense, confused, then realize it's flanking. Not like a wild animal, like something that understands terrain. You break into another run back uphill, this time grabbing branches and roots for leverage. Your shoulder slams into a trunk and you feel bark scrape skin. No time to wince, you keep moving. Then sunlight, a break in the canopy. You burst into a clearing dotted with ancient cycads and flowering plants in full ridiculous bloom. The plants here are loud reds, yellows, purples, oversized petals, and sticky bulbs. It's a party for pollinators, and you just crashed in sweaty and gasping. And suddenly, the Microraptor doesn't follow. You collapse to your knees, confusion mingling with relief. Behind you, no rustle, no glide. Just a stillness like someone paused the scene. That's when you see it. This clearing isn't just a bloom zone. It's a display zone. You're not alone. Across the clearing, two Microraptors have squared off. Their tails are lifted, their limbs stretched, feathers flared like parade fans. But this isn't combat, no clawing, no biting, just color, pure, blinding color. Historians still debate whether such displays were territorial or romantic. But the choreography is unmistakable. One spins. The other fans its tail into a perfect semicircle, then lowers it slowly like a curtain falling at the end of a show. A mating dance, maybe. Or a challenge, or just showing off. The dark one, the predator, appears again at the edge of the clearing, but doesn't enter. It watches the dance like a bouncer outside a velvet rope. No one crosses in, no one dares interrupt. You sit, breath still ragged but steadier now. It's strange, isn't it? To feel safer among predators as long as they're too busy showing off to notice you. Odd fact, modern birds often engage in ritualistic displays that serve more than one purpose, attracting mates. Yes, but also warning rivals, asserting dominance, even scaring off other species. Microraptor might have been doing all of that. Flashing its hues not just to say, look at me, but also, don't mess with me or I'm faster than you'll ever be. The clearing dims slightly as clouds roll overhead. One of the dancers lifts off and glides in a perfect arc toward a nearby tree. The other remains feathers, slowly deflating like it's coming down from a high. The moment ends. The dark Microraptor turns away and disappears. You're alone again. But you've learned something. This isn't a forest of simple rules. Bright means dangerous. Beauty means power. And just because something dances doesn't mean it won't kill you when the music stops. You stand legs, sore hands, scraped clothes, soaked in sweat, and whatever tree sap perfume this place runs on. And still you want to see more. You follow a streaming now, one that winds like a lazy serpent through the undergrowth. The water's brownish with floating leaves and insects dancing on its surface like they're skating on invisible glass. It's quiet again, but this time not because of fear. This quiet feels earned, like the forest is letting you catch your breath for once. You crouch beside the stream and splash cool water on your face. It smells vaguely like iron and flowers, a strange mix you'll probably remember long after you've left this place, assuming you do leave. Above the trees stretch higher and denser, their branches twining together like locked fingers. The sun pokes through in scattered shafts, making little spotlights on the forest floor. One of those beams hits something pale, sticking out of the soil. You step closer. A bit of rock, no bone. You kneel and brush dirt away gently, and more of it comes into view. Not just one bone, but several. A fossil or something in between fossil and carcass. It's a small skeleton, mostly intact, flattened across a rock slab like a butterfly pressed in a book. You recognize it instantly. Microraptor, perfectly preserved. Wings outstretched, tail feathers still outlined in dust. Its skull has collapsed inward slightly, but the rest of it still articulated. Still posed, seems almost like it's sleeping. And there's something shimmering on the stone. A sheen like nail polish left to dry too long in the sun. You realize what you're seeing: fossilized melanosomes, the microscopic pigment sacs that once gave this Microraptor its famous rainbow plumage. Somehow they've survived the ages encased in rock. You reach out gently and run a finger across the ridge of its spine. The rock is warm, not from the sun, from the inside. Suddenly, you're not in the forest anymore. You're in a lab. Fluorescent lights hum above you. People in lab coats move around whispering in excitement. The fossil lies on a steel table identical to the one you just saw in the forest. You blink, confused, disoriented. One of the researchers speaks, another perfect specimen. From Liaoning, again. And yes, iridescence confirmed. The name hits like lightning. Liaoning Province, China, home to some of the most exquisitely preserved feathered dinosaur fossils ever found. The ancient lake beds here became prehistoric glue traps, capturing not only bone, but feathers, stomach contents, even skin impressions. Time, water, and pressure work together to fossilize not just skeletons, but moments. The Microraptor was found here first in 2000. The specimen shocked the world. 4 wings, hollow bones, feathers that glittered under specific light. It looked like a myth, not a dinosaur, but the evidence was undeniable. Odd fact, the first known Microraptor fossil was nicknamed Dave. Just Dave. As if this tiny rainbow-gliding tree-leaping death kite was a barista from Portland. You blink again and you're back in the forest. The fossil remains half buried at your feet, its shine slowly fading under drifting dust. You sit beside it trying to make sense of what just happened. Memory vision. An echo. The stream beside you gurgles gently. Something small splashes. You look up. Across the water, a Microraptor perches on a boulder. Its feathers glisten just faintly, not the full sheen of mating display, just a soft, shifting shimmer. It watches you without blinking. Not hunting, not dancing, just existing. Historians still debate why these fossils are so well preserved in Liaoning. Some say it was the volcanic ash from ancient eruptions, quick choking deadly. Others believe the lake bed's unique chemical soup created a perfect preservation environment. What's agreed on is this. Liaoning changed everything. Before it, dinosaurs were scaly, cold, reptilian. After they had feathers, they glowed. They hunted from trees, and suddenly every pigeon on the sidewalk became a possible cousin of a Microraptor. You glance down at the fossil again. Its wings are outstretched like it was about to leap, forever frozen in that final graceful moment. And something hits you. This creature, so small, so flashy, might have been completely forgotten if not for one perfect death. One fall into the right lake. One burial under the right ash. One accident that preserved beauty instead of erasing it. How many other creatures were lost without a trace? You look up again. The Microraptor is gone. You stand brushing dirt from your legs. The stream continues its endless mutter. The breeze returns, stirring the trees. Everything feels a little quieter now, not in fear, but in reverence. Because you've just seen a ghost and it shimmered. You move upstream, walking ankle-deep through water so clear you can count the pebbles beneath. Small fish dart past your steps, vanishing into deeper pools like smoke in a breeze. The forest around you is alive again, not just alive, but talking. A chorus of distant croaks, chirps, and creaks bounces off the trees, and it feels like the whole ecosystem has exhaled. You're still thinking about that fossil, still thinking about how something so delicate could be remembered for 120 million years because it happened to die just right. You step out of the stream and into a dry patch of moss. Your boots are bare feet, dream feet, whatever you've got press into the spongy floor. You kneel to take a closer look at a strange arrangement of rocks up ahead. Not natural, not completely. They form a circle, or close to it. In the center, bones, tiny ones, scattered like the leftovers of a hasty feast. But these bones haven't been gnawed. They're intact. Vertebrae still linked, a rib cage partly collapsed. You tilt your head. There's a Microraptor skull in the center beak, closed eye sockets empty, still noble. What happened here? The feathers are long gone. But around the bones, you see faint stains in the soil. Irregular rings of darker earth where minerals from long-decayed plumage soaked into the ground. You can almost see where the wings spread. 4 of them. You sit beside the circle. This one didn't die alone. And not by accident. Historians still debate what Microraptor's coloration meant in this kind of context. Was iridescence a warning camouflage? A mating tool? Some argue it was disruptive coloration, a way to make their shape harder to recognize when in motion like a chameleon using shimmer instead of shade. Others suggest it was simply a sexual selection trait. Look how shiny I am, baby. Let's make shiny babies. But color in nature always means something. You imagine this microraptor under sunlight, perched on a branch, feathers glittering like armor forged by stardust. And maybe that shimmer meant dominance. Maybe it meant death. Maybe this one was the alpha. Or maybe it just caught the eye of something meaner. Because iridescence doesn't just attract mates. It attracts everything. Odd fact. Some insects evolved to mimic iridescence in predators to scare off birds. Reflective scales that make them look like something poisonous or at least not worth the risk. But Microraptor didn't evolve to scare. It evolved to impress. You stand again and scan the trees. No movement, no glint. Then you hear it. A series of chirps, not musical, mechanical, like a ratchet being twisted in rhythm. You follow the sound, carefully picking your way over roots and fallen logs until you reach another clearing. This one dense with ferns and flowering bushes, and in the middle, another Microraptor. But this one, it's different. It's flaring its feathers, but not to another of its kind. It's facing a predator, a small theropod, no feathers, just pebbled skin and too many teeth. About the size of a golden retriever, but leaner, faster. You instinctively back away, but the Microraptor doesn't. It stands, its ground tail held high, wings outstretched. Its whole body glows with a bluish tint, light pulsing off its surface like a living gemstone. The predator snarls, and then it backs off. Slowly, you freeze in disbelief as it slinks into the bushes and vanishes. The Microraptor stays where it is, feathers still flared, motionless as stone. Then with a sharp chirp, it folds itself back together and glides off into the trees. You exhale. Historians still argue whether small dinosaurs used color as defense. Was it just a mating game, or could these displays be meant to bluff predators? Some modern birds, like the sunbittern, flash eye spots on their wings to startle would-be attackers. Maybe Microraptor had its own version, less boo and more. Don't bother. I'm radioactive. You step into the clearing where it stood. The ground is littered with scuff marks, evidence of the standoff. Feathers, too. A few long, dark ones glint faintly in the light. You kneel, pick one up, and it flutters between your fingers as if still alive. It's not soft, it's structured, built for flight, but also built for show. You pocket the feather, why you're not sure. Maybe to remember that moment when color saved a life, when shine beat teeth, and suddenly the phrase hits you. Color was the message. You think about how for centuries we imagined dinosaurs as dull, uniform creatures, olive drab, desert brown, tinted only by the dust they died in. But here, now, that story's falling apart. Every feather, every shimmer, every fossil whisper says otherwise. These weren't creatures trying to hide. They were trying to be seen. You push deeper into the forest, away from the stream, away from the clearing, and away from that Microraptor whose feathers turned back a predator with nothing but shine and nerve. The forest narrows here, the trees press tighter together, their roots tangled in uneasy spirals. The ground is uneven, studded with moss-covered rocks and sinkholes camouflaged by ferns. You tread lightly, or try to. Then something crashes overhead, a blur of black and blue feathers gliding fast low, followed by another. You duck, heart hammering, as two Microraptors tear through the branches in a flash of wing and color. They don't notice you. Or maybe they do and just don't care. They're chasing something. You look up in time to see a small mammal, rat-like panicked, leap from a tree and scurry across a low branch. A moment later, one of the Microraptors catches up, pivots midair, and slams its body into the creature. There's a snap, a squeak, then silence. The other Microraptor hovers nearby, flapping hard once, twice, then folding its wings and perching. You stay still, hidden beneath a fern, watching. The two dino-birds don't fight over the kill. They share it bit by bit, taking turns like wolves at a carcass. You can't look away. Historians still debate whether Microraptors were solitary hunters or operated in loose, opportunistic pairs. The fossil record offers hints but nothing definitive. Yet here in this quiet, tense canopy, it's hard not to read meaning into behavior. Odd fact, some birds of prey today, like Harris's hawks, hunt cooperatively. One drives prey out, the other catches. Maybe Microraptor, with its intelligence, agility, and four-winged flexibility, did the same. Or maybe this is just a fluke, a moment of shared convenience in a competitive world. But it doesn't feel random. You shift slightly and step back and snap a twig. Both heads turn towards you instantly. You freeze. The Microraptor holding the carcass tilts its head and emits a low vibrating hiss, not a screech, just a warning. The other narrows its eyes. They don't pounce, but they don't blink either. You slowly raise your hands and back away, careful not to trip on the web of roots behind you. The Microraptors return to their meal. And that's when you realize you can't outclimb a climber. You turn and try to move quietly, but the ground here isn't made for escape. It's made to slow you down. The trees are too close together for running, too tall for comfort, and every step you take echoes in some animal's ears. You grab a root and pull yourself up a low incline, then another. Above, something flutters, branches sway. Then there's a sound you haven't heard yet. A whoop, high, short, sharp, followed by three more. You stop climbing. The call echoes again, and this time it's coming from multiple directions. You've wandered into territory, Microraptor territory, and unlike before, they're not ignoring you anymore. You scramble upward, trying to gain higher ground. Your hands scrape bark, your knees sink into moss. Every branch you grab feels slightly too thin, slightly too slick. And then thud. Something lands above you. You don't look. You keep climbing. Another thud. Closer this time. The hairs on your arms rise. Then a shadow passes in front of you, silent, feathered, watching. It doesn't strike, it glides away. A second one replaces it. You stop. This is a test. You breathe slow and steady. You lower your body hands, still gripping the trunk, and press your cheek to the bark. One of them chirps. Another answers. Then they scatter, like smoke and wind. You're alone again. The silence returns, not fearful, but aware. You pull yourself up onto a thick branch and sit, letting your legs dangle. Your heart still pounds, but your face breaks into something you didn't expect, a smile. You just passed their gauntlet, and they let you go. You look out over the trees and realize something you've climbed higher than ever before. The forest stretches beneath you, a living ocean of green and shadow. And in the distance, high above the canopy, you see one, a Microraptor, gliding, its wings outstretched, catching sunlight in flashes of violet and gold, its tail feathers split into a perfect fan. It twists mid-air, adjusts its wings, then disappears into the clouds of the upper trees. It wasn't chasing anything. It was just flying. Historians still debate whether Microraptors enjoyed gliding or if that's even a concept animals can have. But here, watching it dance through the air with no clear target, no kill to make, no rival to outshine you, can't help but think maybe it just liked it. Maybe soaring from tree to tree, painting the sky with color, was its own reward. You sit in that tree for a long time, and for once you feel like you belong. The next time you hear the sound of snapping wood, you're not startled. You turn toward it calmly, like someone opening a curtain they've drawn 100 times. And sure enough, through a tangle of vines and leaves, there it is again. A Microraptor, not gliding this time, but hopping from branch to branch, like a child skipping stairs. It pauses halfway up the trunk of a tree, then shifts its weight and launches. The wings catch air, the tail fans out. For a split second, it becomes a cross-shaped shadow against the sky. And then you hear it, a brittle snap and a sharp crack. Not the animal, the branch. The Microraptor misjudged. Or the wood gave way. Either way, it tumbles. Not a glide, not a dive, a fall. You rush forward, scanning the forest floor until you see the shape in the leaves. It's still moving. One wing twitches. The tail stirs. You slow your pace. Not because you're afraid, but because it feels wrong to rush. You crouch beside it, breath shallow. The Microraptor is alive, but barely. One wing hangs at a strange angle, feathers splayed like the pieces of a shattered fan. Its eye watches you not with fear but resignation. It knows it's grounded, and that in this forest is a death sentence. Because hollow bones may grant you the sky, but they betray you to gravity. You sit cross-legged beside it. The light filtering through the trees dapples the iridescent still clinging to its feathers. Even wounded, even broken, it shimmers, like it refuses to stop being beautiful. Historians still debate whether Microraptor's hollow bones made it especially fragile. Some argue the lightweight structure was resilient enough to withstand normal wear and tear. Others say it was a trade-off, strength for grace, endurance for height. Whatever the truth, you're seeing the cost firsthand. You reach out, slowly. The Microraptor flinches but doesn't move away. You gently press your fingers against its uninjured wing. The feathers are smoother than you expect. Not soft like fur, but not coarse either, like silk cut into ribbons. Odd fact: bird bones aren't just hollow, they're reinforced with internal struts like a bridge. Microraptor bones had some of the same structures. But no matter how cleverly designed, a fall from height in the wrong angle can still break you. It tries to shift, but one leg is tucked under at the wrong angle. You know you can't help it. Not really. You don't have the tools, the time, the right touch. So you do the only thing you can. You stay. The forest shifts around you, its rhythm slowing as if in sympathy. The insects buzz quieter. The leaves above rustle in softer patterns. You and the Microraptor share this stillness, the unspoken understanding of creatures who are both just caught. One by evolution, one by accident. Eventually, it closes its eyes. You sit with it for a long while. Then another movement. A second Microraptor steps out from the shadows. Smaller, glossier, younger maybe. It watches you, tilting its head from side to side. Then it glides down, not toward you, but toward the injured one. You scoot back, giving space. The newcomer presses its beak against the fallen Microraptor's shoulder. A soft trill. A low vibration. A language you weren't meant to understand. But you understand enough. They know each other. Historians still debate whether dinosaurs displayed social bonding beyond mating and rivalry. Most evidence is indirect nests, proximity, fossil groupings. But sometimes behavior speaks louder than bones. The newcomer settles beside its companion. Not to guard. Not to drag away. Just to sit. You leave them there, backtracking through the brush, heart strangely full and heavy at the same time. Every tree you pass looks different now. Every branch, every height, every shadow. Because now you understand the cost of the sky, and how even the lightest bones can break. You come upon a patch of trees scorched at the base. Not recent, just a scar long healed. The bark is blackened, but the canopy above remains untouched, green and full of life. It looks like the forest tried to burn itself out but couldn't quite finish the job. You run your hand over the char, oddly warm, and you wonder, was that what brought down the fossil you saw? Not a predator, not a fall, but fire. Historians still debate how forest fires shaped evolution. Some believe early birds and feathered dinosaurs developed flight in part to escape such blazes. Others think these fires cleared space for low-flying hunters to glide between gaps. Either way, fire left its mark on bark, on bones, on the story. You look up. Another Microraptor glides overhead. It doesn't pause, doesn't notice you, it just moves. Clean, quiet, unbroken. And you smile despite everything. Because here, color isn't just a display, it's defiance. You find yourself tracing the edge of a shallow basin, now dry, cracked, rimmed by tall saccades and thick moss. This place feels old, not in a general prehistoric way, but like something happened here. Recently, the way you know a campfire was lit even if the embers have cooled. The ground is scored with claw marks more deliberate than the random scratches you've seen elsewhere. And they all spiral inward toward the center. You climb onto a low ridge for a better view. There in the middle of the basin, two microraptors stand frozen. No, not frozen focused. Wings flared, tails straight, bodies tense. It's not a casual display, it's a standoff. One chirps sharp and short. The other responds with a hiss and a half step forward. Neither attacks. You hunker down, barely breathing. This isn't a battle of strength, this is style war. One microraptor lowers itself, spreading its four wings wide like a peacock folding into a crouch. The iridescence explodes across its body, blues, greens, violet sparks in the shaded light. Its tail lifts the twin feathers at the tip, splitting like a feathered V. The other doesn't blink. Instead, it hops upward in a burst, spins midair and lands hard enough to send dust flying. You almost clap. Almost. But then it turns serious. The two clash not with claws, but with flare. A spiral of color, flapping, leaping, tail-flicking chaos. They dance more than fight, dodging each other in tight bursts, wings flashing. One dives low, the other hops sideways. Their claws swing but never strike. Feathers get ruffled but not torn. This isn't about hurting, it's about winning visually. Historians still debate the purpose of these feathered showdowns. Were they territorial disputes? Mating rituals? Both. Some modern birds, like birds of paradise or mannequins, compete with performances rather than violence. Maybe Microraptor was the same, a prehistoric fashion contest with talons. Odd fact, some birds today literally have asymmetric courtship moves. They favor one side when spinning or flashing feathers, possibly linked to brain hemisphere dominance. Watching these two dinosaurs, it feels familiar. One keeps leaning left in its display, almost like it's choreographed. You remain crouched as the intensity builds. The air itself seems to crackle with movement. Wings cut through dust feathers, shiver with every pulse of wind. These aren't just dinosaurs anymore, they're dancers, and the forest is their stage. Then, in a flash, it ends. The first Microraptor hops back and fans its feathers in a final display, wide, confident, blazing with rainbow shimmer. The second lowers its wings, concedes. Not in fear, not in injury, in acknowledgement. It backs away slowly and vanishes into the shadows. The victor stands alone in the center for a moment longer. Feathers still flared head high. Then it folds everything in like an umbrella after rain and climbs the nearest tree in a few effortless leaps. You finally breathe, and the first thought in your mind, I just watched a dinosaur win by being prettier. You step into the basin checking for damage, but there's none. Just tracks, flattened ferns, and a few discarded feathers fluttering like confetti after a parade. One catches your eye, a deep violet feather curved like a crescent moon. You pick it up and hold it to the light. It glints in two tones depending on the angle. Not just color, structure. That's the secret behind iridescence, microscopic structures that bend light. Not pigment, not dye, architecture. The feather isn't purple. It just looks purple depending on how the light hits it. The shimmer is a trick of physics, not chemistry. You tuck it behind your ear, half trophy, half souvenir. Somewhere overhead, the winning Microraptor chirps once, then glides away. And you feel something you didn't expect: envy. Not for the feathers or the wings, but for the confidence. Because this creature lived in a world full of predators, full of uncertainty, and still chose to glow. Still chose to dance. You leave the basin behind and climb toward a rock ledge overlooking a stretch of canopy. The trees sway gently in the late afternoon breeze and the light is changing. Softer now, golden, not green. And you see them, Microraptors in motion. 3 of them, maybe 4, gliding from branch to branch, like punctuation in a sentence too old to read. You think maybe humans were wrong to paint dinosaurs in dull tones? Maybe nature never did subtle. Historians still debate how often dinosaurs displayed bright colors. Feathers are rare in the fossil record, and melanosomes even rarer. But when they do show up, the pattern is unmistakable. Where there were feathers, there was flash, and where there was flash, there was purpose. Because in a world this dangerous, you either hide or you become too stunning to ignore. You stretch out on the ledge, legs dangling over the edge, hands behind your head. And for the first time since you arrived here, you feel like you're not trespassing anymore. You're watching the world as it used to be. A world where survival wasn't just about strength or speed. It was about style. You descend from the rock ledge as evening creeps into the canopy. Shadows lengthen and light slides from gold to gray. The forest softens, sounds dull. Everything starts to move slower except your thoughts. They're still racing. You've watched a Microraptor fall. You've seen another turn back a predator. You've seen two turn a clearing into a color duel. But now you want something else. Proof. Not just behavior evidence. Something you can take back. Something real. Your feet lead you downhill past tangled ferns and fallen logs toward a part of the forest that smells older. Damp, heavy, with the scent of decay. There's no wind here, only stillness and a low hum like the forest is holding its breath. And then you smell it. Sap. Thick and sweet. A scent so rich it feels like it sticks to your teeth. You follow it, weaving through warped trees with trunks like elephant skin. And then you find it an amber fall. It's not what you expect. Not a single drop frozen in time. This is a wall of sap petrified mid-spill, like a honey-colored waterfall turned to stone. And inside life. Trapped, frozen, beautiful, wings, feathers, a Microraptor. Perfectly preserved in the amber mid-glide, or maybe mid-struggle. Its mouth slightly open, its claws half-curled. 4 feathered limbs caught in a permanent dive never to finish. Its colors are muted by the resin, but you can still see the shimmer. Blue, purple, black. A painting trapped in honey. You press your hand to the smooth surface. It's warm. You don't know why, it just is. Historians still debate how creatures ended up encased in amber. Most think it wasn't instant. A foot stuck. A wing brushed too close. The more they struggled, the more they sank. Amber was a trap disguised as shelter, sweet-smelling sticky death. Odd fact. Modern insects trapped in amber can still retain microscopic detail, even internal organs. Some have even been studied for ancient bacteria. But with dinosaurs, it's rarer. This isn't a bug in a bead. This is a small feathered dinosaur captured at its most vulnerable. You crouch beside the amber wall and trace your fingers along the surface. Every groove, every bubble, every ancient fingerprint of time feels sacred. This isn't just a fossil, it's a diary. A confession whispered across 100 million years. The Microraptor's eyes are open. You wonder if it saw the sap coming. If it knew what was happening. Or if in its final moments it was chasing something, or fleeing, or flying. Historians still argue whether feathers helped dinosaurs survive or got them killed. Sure, they helped with flight warmth display, but feathers also trapped moisture, caught on branches, made it harder to hide. Were they tools? Decorations, vulnerabilities. You lean closer. Inside the amber, you see more than bones and feathers. You see ambition. You see the cost of reaching too far. Above you, a gentle flutter. You look up. A live Microraptor watches from a branch. It's smaller than the one in amber, but the same glint in the feathers. The same curious tilt of the head. It doesn't flee. Doesn't threaten. It just exists. And for a second, you think maybe it recognizes the fossil too. Maybe it senses a story preserved there, even if it doesn't understand it. Maybe that's what memory is, knowing you're not the first. You step away from the amber and sit beside it, back to a root that curves like a chair. You watch the Microraptor preen. Its feathers catch the dying light. Then it glides down, perches near you, and just stays. The silence becomes a kind of conversation. You think about how fragile this all is. How easy it would have been for Microraptor to disappear from history altogether. No fossils, no feathers, just bones crushed by time. You think about how lucky we are to know it existed at all. This amber. It's not just preservation, it's defiance. It's the past refusing to vanish. You glance once more at the Microraptor inside the resin. Trapped, yes, but not forgotten. And then you look at the one beside you. Free. The forest changes again as night creeps in. The light isn't gone, it's just quieter now, dimmer. The way streetlights feel in fog, soft and out of focus. You move through it like someone wading through memory. Every tree, every leaf, every stone feels like it's already been touched, already walked, already known. And then you see something strange. A feather. Not on the ground, not fluttering from a branch. Embedded in stone. You kneel. It's a fossil slab cracked, but intact, half covered in soil and leaf litter. You brush it clean, carefully, gently. And there it is, the imprint of a Microraptor. Its form etched in fine-grained rock, its wings splayed in an eternal X. And between its ribs a shadow of something else. Smaller bones, the remains of a last meal, possibly a fish, maybe a bird. But it's where you found it that stirs your mind. You're far from the lake beds of Liaoning. This is different terrain, different trees, different geology. And yet, here it is. Historians still puzzle over this. How did Microraptor fossils turn up far beyond where they were expected? At altitudes they shouldn't have reached, in sediment types they shouldn't have preserved in places separated by what would have been inland seas or volcanic barriers. Some say the Microraptor migrated. Others propose multiple species. A few whisper that fossil dating is flawed, that our timelines might be skewed. But the more we find, the less certain the map becomes. You glance around and for the first time, you don't feel like you're in the Microraptor's world. You feel like you're in its memory. Odd fact, one fossil site showed a Microraptor with a fish in its stomach, indicating that these creatures weren't just tree dwellers. They may have fished, dove into shallow water with a glide, snapped up something slippery and flapped back into the canopy. A feathered raptor that hunted like a heron. You wonder, did the fossil in front of you do the same? Was this a fishing ground once? Did it dive one too many times? You look down again. The detail in the fossil is absurd. Each flight feather outlined, each toe bone curled just slightly, as if the creature hadn't died in pain, but in mid-motion. Like it stopped breathing while still moving forward. And then another thought hits you. What if this Microraptor didn't belong here? What if it was a wanderer blown off course, separated from its group, if they even formed groups, and glided its way into unfamiliar territory? You look up at the trees, the high limbs bathed in blue shadow. You felt that way. A stranger in a place that doesn't match the map in your head. Maybe that's why you found this one. You sit beside the fossil and take a moment to just be. No forest rustle, no chirps. Just the hum of old things being remembered. You pull out your earlier feather tucked behind your ear and hold it beside the fossil's outline. 1,000 lifetimes separate them, but here they are, side by side, alive and preserved. Light suddenly breaks through the canopy moonlight, now full in silver. It hits the fossil just right. For a moment, the stone doesn't look dead. The feather impressions shimmer faintly. The rock seems to breathe. And in that moment, you think, we never really find fossils in the wrong place. We just don't understand the journey. The breeze picks up. You stand and look out across the ridge where the trees roll into mist. You can almost see them. Microraptors gliding between trees, dipping into streams, flashing their colors at dusk. Maybe they weren't confined to one region. Maybe they went everywhere they could glide. Maybe they were explorers. Maybe they were like you. And as that thought settles, you hear it a soft chirrup. You turn. A single Microraptor perched on a branch watches you. It doesn't move. And then, as if understanding something you haven't yet said aloud, it launches into the air wings, catching the light in a flash of violet and green. It vanishes behind a tree, then reappears again, gliding, not fleeing. Leading. You follow. Not to chase, just to see. You follow the gliding shadow through the trees, your steps quieter now, more deliberate. It isn't just that you're afraid of making noise. It's that you don't want to break the moment. The Microraptor swoops low ahead, barely touching the air, and you feel less like you're chasing and more like you've been invited. The terrain changes again subtly at first. The trees grow sparser, the underbrush thinner. You pass stones that seem deliberately arranged, though you know that's just your human brain finding patterns. A pile here, a ridge there, but then you see it. Color. Not on the animal, on the ground. Pale streaks in the soil, not paint, not blood, something else. Feathers. Shed feathers. Lots of them. You stop and scan the grove. The trees are older here, twisted like ancient hands, and in the center of it all lies a shallow pit ringed with vines. Something moved here. Many somethings. The ground is pressed flat in layers like the pages of a book written in footsteps. This was a roost. You step into it careful not to disturb anything. And there, tucked into a patch of soft grass, is a single skeleton, small, fragile, unmistakable. Another Microraptor, but this one isn't preserved in amber or trapped in stone. It's just there, bones aligned, wings folded, tail arched, like it chose to lie down and simply stop. You crouch beside it and stare. Its feathers are mostly gone, but a few remain fringing the wing bones like brushstrokes left behind by a tired artist. You reach out, fingers hovering over the exposed ribs, and you feel it not just sadness but peace. This one wasn't hunted, wasn't trapped. It died in its home, in stillness. And that stillness has lasted 100 million years. Historians still debate whether dinosaurs returned to communal nesting grounds. Some believe feathered species revisited familiar roosts, safe places where the canopy was thick and the predators fewer. Others argue these sites were accidental, shaped by food or terrain. But evidence suggests that at least some species like Microraptor might have lived with ritual, not just instinct, memory. Odd fact. Some modern birds return to the same tree every year, sometimes even the same branch. They navigate by smell magnetism or stars. Why not dinosaurs? Why not here? You sit beside the skeleton and close your eyes. And in the darkness behind your lids, you see them again. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Microraptors gliding from branch to branch, a whole forest alive with movement and light. Like fireflies but winged. Like dancers on silent wings. No roaring, no trampling, just color, just grace. The image fades and you open your eyes. The moon is higher now, casting long silver beams through the canopy. And in that pale light, something catches your eye, a smear in the soil beside the bones. It looks like nothing at first, just a darker patch of ground. But then you realize it's color, residual pigment. Microscopic melanosomes that survived in soil long enough to mark it. You brush your hand gently over the spot, and the dirt flakes away in fine powder. The shimmer's still there. Historians still argue how long color can survive. Some claim melanosomes degrade after only a few million years. Others believe the right conditions, dryness, darkness, lack of oxygen can preserve them longer than we ever thought. But here it is, under your fingertips, proof that even now the past is refusing to fade. You sit back and above you something shifts. Another Microraptor. It's watching again. This one doesn't glide, doesn't chirp, just watches from a branch with head tilted as if you are the thing being studied now. And maybe you are. You've wandered through its world, witnessed its hunt, its dance, its downfall, its memory. You've walked in a place where beauty wasn't a luxury, it was a strategy. And the more time you spend among them, the more you understand they didn't flash color to decorate their lives. They survived with it. You look down at the skeleton one last time, then rise to your feet. And just like that, the watcher above launches silently into the trees, its silhouette glowing briefly as it vanishes. You follow. And with every step, the forest around you begins to look less like a dream and more like a story still being written. The forest narrows into a corridor of trees. Not quite a path, but a rhythm. Branches form archways above your head, and the moonlight filters down in broken lines like sentences of a language lost to time. You're not hurrying anymore. You walk with the stillness of someone nearing the end of a very old story. A breeze pushes through the leaves, and for a moment it almost sounds like feathers brushing feathers. You follow it, and there beyond a curtain of hanging moss you see it. One last Microraptor. Perched on a stone at the edge of a shallow ravine, wings neatly folded tail feathers draped behind like a silk ribbon. Its head is turned towards you, but not directly. It's looking at something else, something in the sky. You step closer, not too close, just enough to see what it sees. The sky is clearing now, stars sharpening in the blue-black dome above. And with that clarity comes a hush deeper than any silence so far. Even the insects seem to pause. The Microraptor rises. No display this time, no threat, no shimmer of defiance, just movement. It climbs a crooked tree in a series of elegant hops, claws hooking into the bark like it's memorized every crack. You watch from the base, hands at your sides, holding your breath as if noise might fracture the moment. It reaches the top. The wind picks up, and then it leaps. Not toward prey, not to escape, just to glide. It spreads its four wings and falls like a leaf with purpose. The moon catches the trailing edge of its feathers and lights them up, not iridescent now, but glowing in cold silver. A final shimmer, a quiet declaration. And as it vanishes into the night canopy, you realize something. You are not in a story about extinction. You are in a story about what refused to go quietly. Because even as the dinosaurs fell, even as meteors came and oceans shifted and forests burned, Microraptor left behind its truth that survival could be graceful, that death didn't mean disappearance, that beauty, real beauty, could last longer than bone. You walk to the place where it launched. There's nothing there but a slight depression in the bark and a single feather caught in a tangle of lichen. You take it gently, hold it up to the light. It's frayed, faded, nearly gray. But when the wind catches it just right, it still shines. Historians still debate whether creatures like Microraptor were ancestors to modern birds or just side branches on the evolutionary tree. The truth. You're holding it. It doesn't matter if it led to pigeons or vanished in ash. It existed. It shined. And it was seen. You sit one last time, not to rest, but to remember. The amber, the fossil slab, the feathers, the dance, the fall, and the flight. Because everything you've witnessed, every fragment of color, every whispered motion, every blink in the trees, it all adds up to something more than science. It adds up to presence. And even now, as the wind rises and the canopy rustles, you feel it. The pulse of wings, the shimmer of color in your peripheral vision. They're still here, not as echoes, as reminders, as ghosts in full plumage. And as you close your eyes, the last image behind your lids isn't a predator or a fossil. It's a streak of violet in the dark, gliding. Forever. So what was it really, this creature that glided through the night like a four-winged dream? The Microraptor wasn't the biggest or the strongest or even the smartest, but it was one of the most unexpected. A dinosaur that didn't roar or stomp or crush, but instead shimmered, danced, flew, not like a bird, not quite, but like a message written in air. It carried feathers not just for function, but for show. Its colors weren't camouflage, they were conversation. You walked with it. Watched it fall, watched it fly, watched it die, and leave behind a fossil full of beauty. You learned that color wasn't decoration, it was survival. That gliding wasn't retreat, it was strategy. And that sometimes the smallest things iridescent overlooked carry the longest echoes. Microraptor didn't fade into history. It sank into it, into stone and amber and theory and debate, and now into you. You felt its presence in feathers that still shine in fossils, that still whisper in forests that remember. Not everything ancient is extinct. Some things just learn to shimmer so well, we mistake them for stars.